It seems like no matter where you live in the country, flipping and pitching some sort of soft plastic or a jig to shallow cover is a great technique literally year round. But today I want to talk about 5 mistakes that a lot of guys make when they are flipping and pitching. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. This video is brought to you by sportsmansoutfitters.com. I've been shopping at Sportsman's Outfitters ever since last year, and to be honest guys, I have saved a lot of money on my fishing equipment and tackle ever since I started shopping there. It always seems that Sportsman's Outfitters really does have the best price on a lot of different tackles. If you guys would like to help support the Bass Fishing HQ channel, click those links down below in the description and pick up some of your tackle today. Whether you fish lakes that have a lot of wood or a lot of vegetation or maybe a lot of docks, whatever it is, flipping and pitching is a technique that is not just for springtime. It really happens all year long, and it is one of like the most fun ways to catch a bass. Go, baby! It just feels like you're combat fishing. You got a big rod, heavy line a lot of times, and when you set the hook, it's just all chaos. Fish are going all over the place, but it's just so much fun. But I really see that there's a lot of mistakes or there's a lot of things that guys put almost too much of an emphasis on that I think just really doesn't matter. So let's go over that right now. The first mistake that I see a lot of anglers make is that they put too much of an emphasis on exactly what they're flipping and pitching as far as the lure goes. And guys, I cannot tell you how many times that I have been around a group of fish and I am fishing with somebody and we're flipping or pitching completely different things, even completely different line sizes and weights or whatever, and it does not matter. The other day I was fishing with my uncle. He was fishing a 3/4 ounce tube. I was fishing a 3/8 ounce beaver, and we were both catching fish. And I think that a lot of times, probably 9 times out of 10, if you actually get around fish, whether you find a stump field or you find a line of reeds or lily pads, once you get in those areas, if there's fish there, a lot of times it doesn't matter what you flip and pitch. Most of the time that I'm out there flipping and pitching, I'm really pitching 3 different baits. One is going to be like a beaver style bait. One of my favorites is the Missile Baits D-Bomb. I got a pile of them here. This is the black and blue color, and this is the green pumpkin color. And that's pretty much all I carry. But will that outfish a Reaction Innovations beaver? I don't think so. I personally think your hookup ratio is better with a D-Bomb, but guys, I just don't think it matters. One of my other favorite baits is a tube, and I fish tubes a lot of times when I'm fishing around pressured bodies of water. But I have fished so many tournaments before where I have a stretch of lily pads or wood or whatever, and I think that the bass are only biting my bait. And then guess what? A co-angler gets in my boat and he starts catching fish on something completely different than I. And I just seen it more times than not that what you're flipping and pitching really doesn't matter. Now, with that being said, I do think you tend to get less bites when you're flipping and pitching a jig, but I do think that those are better quality fish more times than not. But when it comes to plastics, I think too many guys put too much of an emphasis on it. The next mistake that a lot of anglers make when they're up against the bank flipping and pitching, they're simply too noisy. They're not stealthy enough. And one really big thing that I think makes a humongous difference is actually the way that you work your trolling motor. A lot of times when we get into an area where we're flipping and pitching, you're constantly kind of hitting that pedal to move forward, stopping it, pitch, 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 move forward a little bit. And I honestly think that the best way to go about fishing an area once you've found fish is by actually keeping your trolling motor on constant at a very, very low speed. That constant noise actually affects bass way less than you getting on that pedal and getting off of it on maybe a medium speed. The reason that I say that a constant noise affects bass less is because there's been several times, try this spring. If you're going out and you're looking for fish that are actually on beds, when you keep your trolling motor on a constant speed, you'll have gar and you'll have carp and you'll have all kinds of other fish species that almost you run into because it's a constant speed and it's just like it doesn't affect them. But if you're kind of hitting that button to move up and then you stop and then you move up and stop, you're gonna spook fish, carp, gar, and bass every time you go to either hit that button or let off of it. But if you're at a constant speed, it's just something they just don't care about. It comes in from a distance. It's not a violent on or off sound. And I'm telling you, if you use a constant speed while you're flipping and pitching very low, you're gonna catch a lot more fish. Now, another mistake that a lot of guys make is that when they get into thicker wood cover, like I'm fishing here, you'll see a lot of guys pick up a rod that has braided line on it because they think, man, this is some really heavy cover. If I hook a big fish in there, I want to get him out with that braided line. And while that does make sense, the only problem though with braid is that even though you're using 50 or 60 pound line, that line is actually very thin in diameter and it will actually cut into the wood when you're out there flipping and pitching in the woods. So if you do happen to hook a big fish deep in this wood cover and you set the hook hard, that line can actually saw into that wood where then it gets hung and you end up losing that fish. So when you get into that wood cover, don't go to braided line. Stay with your fluorocarbon line. Maybe you go from 20 to 25 pound test, but fluorocarbon really tends to do better in wood cover than braided line. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to fish braid in that situation. I'm just saying if you hook into a really big fish, that braid can easily cut into that wood and you might lose that fish. And this is not a mistake, but actually it's kind of a side note. If you guys look at a lot of professional anglers, a lot of them have different setups that they use. Some guys will use a braid to fluorocarbon leader. Some guys will go straight fluorocarbon. There's a lot of different setups. So the biggest thing is just make sure you're using kind of the right rod and that you're setting the hook the right way depending on what line you are fishing. Typically, if you're using braid or a braid to fluorocarbon leader, you can get away with a lighter rod because the braid has zero stretch where fluorocarbon does have a little stretch. Another mistake that a lot of guys make is assuming that flipping and pitching is a slow technique. And this is not always the truth. You can actually cover a ton of water by flipping and pitching. If you're going down a stretch of bank trying to find fish, you can just pitch your bait to those high percentage areas, the little points in the reeds or the little pockets in the reeds or that piece of wood cover that sticks out a little bit further or that's a little bit thicker. And you can actually cover a lot of water flipping and pitching. So don't always think that you have to use a search bait to find fish. You can still use your flipping and pitching rod and you can do it in a fast manner. And then once you get bit, just like anything, that is when you can slow down and start catching more fish. Now, the fifth mistake that a lot of anglers make is not considering the rate of fall. Earlier in this video, I talked about the lures and baits and how I don't think your baits matter a lot of times. Now, when it comes to rate of fall, that is something that I do put an emphasis on, and it's something that I think a lot of guys don't always pay attention to. A lot of guys, myself included, we kind of have a favorite weight for our flipping and pitching rod. You know, for me, it's 3/8 ounce. I use a 3/8 ounce a ton. That's the one that I usually start with. But there are times if you're fishing really pressured bodies of water, or if you're fishing cold water, or maybe you're fishing after a front where downsizing, going down to a 1/4 ounce or even an 1/8 ounce weight on your flipping and pitching rod can make a huge difference on the number of bites that you can get. And there are times when you add weight, going from a 3/8 to a 1/2 ounce or even a 3/4 ounce can actually get you way more bites because it simply drops past those bass so quickly and causes a reaction strike. Growing up, there was a lake that me and one of my buddies always used to fish, and I'll never forget that during this summer I actually got on this flipping and pitching bite, but I was using a 1 ounce weight, flipping it into laydowns and wood cover. And guess what? You absolutely did not need a 1 ounce weight at all. Like, you could get away with a 1/4 ounce or a 3/8 ounce, but that 1 ounce was zipping past those bass face and it was causing that reaction strike, and that was what was important. My buddy, who was fishing your typical 3/8 ounce weight, no bites. Me with that 1 ounce weight, we're getting a lot of bites. So rate of fall is huge, and I think that is something that you should put a big emphasis on. Now, if you guys want to watch a video of me actually fishing against my uncle in a flipping and pitching battle, I'm gonna leave that video right here. It's a really good one. We caught a lot of fish, a couple of big ones, and it was just a good time. Comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.